Hello, Internet. So, today was Free Comic Book Day, which is the comic book holiday, basically, right? So, I had bought some trades last week and stuff, and I was trying to keep it under control. And I went out today with the express purpose of trying to only buy, like, a few trades, only spend a little bit. That didn't happen at all. So what I'm going to do is kind of show off what I got. What I'm trying to do here is essentially a haul video, which I'm not so big on. But the reason I want to do it today is because A, holy crap. B, I have a lot of stuff here and I'm wondering if anybody else would want to read and talk about it soon and do a hangout or just talk about it at some point. And so that's what I'm trying to get out there. So I'm going to kind of run through it and see how that goes. So that's the plan. That's what we're doing. So I'm going to show you what I got today, and I'm going to bring up a few things I got recently as well, because again, I'm really more interested in seeing if anybody wants to talk about any of this stuff. So here we go. So most of what I got today was at the second stop, and that's where I'm going to start because I just have a box and it's easier to get to. I spent basically $100 there because they had what was collected stuff, and they had little sticker prices, and that was a little cheaper than getting the comics just out of the bins issue by issue. But then these were 75% off of those sticker prices, so you'll kind of see why I picked up a bunch of this crap. So the first one is X Factor Forever. I kind of fell in love with the Peter David X Factor stuff, and this is coming from before that era. But this seemed like it would be a decent run. It was done in a more modern time. I'm looking forward to it. This is something I wanted to read for a while, and I got it dirt cheap. Let's see here. X-Men Alpha Flight. This was like $1. So, I don't know. There you go. X-Men Alpha Flight. I don't know if this is a chunk of them or all of them. I don't know a ton of it, but this is some of the Tangent Comics DC stuff. Wonder Woman, Batman were the ones on the outside. I think there was another pack there, but I thought I'd read these. So, I don't know if anybody's interested in talking about that. I have the 12-issue run of Maverick from the 90s. There's a reason I got this. I very rarely got Wizard issues back when that was a thing, but in one of the few I did, they had kind of a promo piece talking about this Maverick run. It was kind of talking about this character and how he has the legacy virus and every day might be his last, but he's a mercenary, so he's kind of outside of the normal X-Men chunk of things. And it was just this kind of like outskirt character who's on the edge. I mean, very 90s, right? But it was also kind of an interesting character idea. And these are the kinds of characters I don't feel like we see anymore. And these weird little 12-issue runs tended to be a lot of what I loved about comics. Because you get these cool little things and the characters were under pressure, but they're also trying to do something cool. And it's actually led to a lot of nifty stuff. This one ended up getting canned, but I'm willing to bet this was worth checking out. I don't know. Free Comic Book Days were at the top. So if you didn't pick it up, the 2000 AD Free Comic Book Day sampler was amazing. Awesome. You should check it out. Got this for a new one because it was there. And then the Civil War II I read through. Not a good comic. Pretty art, but the writing was like, hello there, War Machine. Why, hello there, Captain Marvel. How are you doing today? Oh, we are a couple, so we will now make it. It was alien. It was weird. I don't get it. I don't understand. Whatever. So let's see. They had the Marvel Knights Century run for cheap, so I've heard things about this, and I've been kind of into a Superman-ish Superman anagram thing. I'll talk about that a bit more later. This fit in with that. A weird Vertigo book I never heard of called The Adventures of a Tattooed Man. So, Old school weird Vertigo I've never heard of before. I'm down. Rush City, some weird DC mini that I don't think was in the DC. I don't know, maybe it was. I don't know dick about it. It was cheap and curious. This one I picked up because of Sleepy Reader, I think, and Reader 1717. Though I don't know if she's read this in particular, but it was a 2-issue Red Sonja mini from Marvel back in the day. Obviously not the Gail Simone stuff or whatever, but I've never delved into like Red Sonja and Conan and all that, and this was just right there. So yeah, $6, 75% off, cheap. This next chunk kind of all relates to each other. Back in the day, around the time I was starting the channel, these were coming out, and I heard not such great things by people who, looking back now, I trust their opinion far less, and I've heard some interesting things, and even if it ends up being schlocky, I'm curious. So I got Cry for Justice, and then the rise and fall of the Red Arrow. So, or Arsenal, that's right, Red Arrow Arsenal. Same character, different name. Anyways, it seemed like something was cool. It's something that I've wanted to read for a while, but I've found the trades and hardcovers, and they're usually kind of at a premium. And so to be able to just find those and read them for cheap, awesome! The next chunk, I'm really curious if anyone has read through, and that is The End, X-Men. There's books 1, 2, and 3 here of the end of the X-Men. For a while, Marvel is doing this, imagining, kind of giving creators to say, like, if you were to write the final, story arc of this character, what do you think it would be and what would happen? And a lot of these were called The End. I'm wondering, because I believe these came slightly after Spider-Man Reign, which was kind of in that same spirit and whatnot. And I don't know if all these add up perfectly, but it is kind of an interesting concept and a fun one to explore. And also, after reading X-Men Forever in its entirety last year, getting into the crazy later years of Chris Claremont X-Men is enjoyable, and I don't know how many others would go down that road, but apparently The End took 3 books, and I know the X-Men was the only one that went that way. I think the rest were just minis in their own right, so it should be interesting. What do you got here? X-Men Hellfire Club? I've never heard of this many before. I'm actually curious. Here's one. Millennium. I'm guessing it's some old DC event. I mean, this is a who's who of DC at the time. I mean, you got your Guy Gardner, Blue Beetle, Flash, Superman, Captain Atom, blah, 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 DC. I don't know. I haven't heard Millennium before. I don't know. There was a Vaughn. I don't know if it's Brian K. Vaughan, Spider-Man, Dr. Octopus, but, yeah. Spider-Man. Here we go. Here is another... I thought it was Vertigo. I guess it's not. Lazarus 5 from DC. Okay. And then, this was something crazy. Looks like it's a second, but I don't know where the hell the first is. Gilgamesh 2, Jim Starlin, and Steve Oliff. 2 names that I've come to appreciate, and I have no idea what this is, but this looks to be like straight sci-fi, but published by DC. And these are in, the prestige book form. I'm really curious about this one, and I'm willing to bet there's some of you guys out there that know what the hell this is, so I'd be curious, but looking forward to that. Then Spider-Man, Daredevil, Marvel Knights, 4 books. Here is one. In the same format, the 4-book thing. Deathlock. But this is older. I think, yeah, 89. I was going to say 80s, and barely I'd be right. Um, this is a book that I have seen in a number of places, and I've seen it held up as a pretty decent, idea and why people like Deathlock, and something that I feel like I should have bought years ago. I don't know. I'm really curious to get into this because it feels like just a side of comics we just don't see anymore, especially in the superhero realm. So, JSA All-Stars. It's All-Stars, right? It has to be good. I don't know. Here's the one that led me down this path to get started. Avengers Forever. This is something that, again, from the Wizard era, was kind of being held up as a big book, and like, if you love Avengers or if you've been curious about Avengers, this is the kind of book to like get the idea of it. And so, and it was supposed to be one of those big mini-series. It was, 12 issues. It was kind of emblematic of the franchise, but also kind of the period. And it was supposed to be, it was supposed to be a big deal. It was a big deal at the time, but I don't believe that it's held up any renowned years later, because I don't think I've heard it mentioned in a long time. But I also don't run in Avengers circles, and I don't know. So I'm curious to read it. I heard it was darn good, and even if it's not, like a timeless classic, I'm positive that one should hold up. My first and important stop was Time Warp. That's my shop. I went there. Sean Tiffany, local artist, cool guy, was selling some of his oil can drive. Picked out some of those. It's cool stuff. It's, local comics, support some of the local artists. Had to do that. This was the trade that I was like, I was going out today. I was convinced this would be like one of the only things I'd buy. But that didn't happen, obviously. But I'm probably just going to read this today. Hellblazer, City of Demons. This did not, I believe, take place in the just Hellblazer run. This was separate, but the reason I picked it out was Sean Murphy did art. So yeah, City of Demons 1 through 5, and then some spirit thing. So I don't know, Sean Murphy art, did Hellblazer. I had to check this out. I've been dying to read this now for a few weeks, so I get to. Then, the final bit. This happened really recently, last week. I bought a lot of Superman. So I've gone through the first 2 trades already, and I'm on the 3rd. These are like the late 90s, early 2000s, starting with basically the second trade is about the Millennium switching over. And this goes to President Lex, Emperor Joker's in there, and then I bought, because it fits in around there, the Our World's War chunk of Superman, which I'm sure you've seen the trade somewhere. It's this big, thick, honkin' chunk of Superman. This is all part of an era of Superman where McGinnis was like the star, Joe Kelly was writing, you had Joe Casey in there for a bit, and a whole bunch of other names. I'm digging it. I don't know, I've never been big on Superman, but this is kind of the era where I've been most interested, because it's Superman at kind of his most iconic. Well, there's been a lot of talks about, like, what is Superman, whereas there's a very clear vision of what Superman could do in ability and in morality, and it fits kind of the classic expected mold, but there's still interesting stories, interesting ideas floating around that, because it was being pushed. And we also had outlets that could happen in different ways. There was a Supergirl, there was a Superboy, we had the whole DC universe to play with, and this was so much bigger and grander and more open than whatever the heck they did come the new 52, because they boiled it down, they made it simpler, and supposedly the idea was to make it more accessible, but then they started with that Morrison run and immediately it's not. I like that run, but for what they were trying to go for, in theory, they failed at horribly, because it was Morrison at his Morrisoniest. So but I'm really into this right now. Yeah, so that's part of it. Now I'm going to talk about some other stuff that I got semi-recently, just in case anybody wants to talk about it. Also, the big get of the day. I'm pretty stoked about this, so... Okay, so, two other things I have. I got Convergence, and when I say Convergence, I mean all of it, all the 2-3 issues, whatever. I got the whole dang thing a couple of months ago, but it took me forever to find issue 0, which I felt like I needed to read before it spun off into everything else. I want to talk about this. I think it's interesting. There's a whole lot in there, and it's in very digestible chunks, obviously. Yeah. Should be cool. Another thing that actually has been sitting around, I think I talked about a little bit before, but I still haven't really gotten to, is Nth Man, the Ultimate Ninja. Crazy, weird Marvel stuff. And again, if anyone really wants to talk a comic with me, whatever, hit me up. If I have an easy way to get a hold of it, I'm down to try. Yeah, so I hope you all had a great free comic book day. Hope you all grabbed whatever the heck you were looking for and got a sweet kickin' deal. So carry on, keep reading, and keep talking comics.